everybody. Welcome to Elevate the Conversation podcast. My name is Gina Donahue. I am your host. I'm also the owner and founder of Elevate Functional Medicine in Suwanee, Georgia. And I have as a guest with me today one of my very close friends, Catrina Harrington. And she is going to join me in a conversation just to talk about the many hats that women wear and the way that women manage to avoid recognizing their own stress because we just have to keep going. And a lot of what I think drives stress in women is relationships. And the need for us to fulfill our obligations in relationships. And Catrina and I spend hours on the phone solving all the world's problems, from racial issues to marital issues to child rearing to just every problem that happens in the world. So I thought it would be a lot of fun to attempt a recording of Catrina and I talking just about one specific topic, trying to stay focused. So Catrina, can you just actually introduce yourself to the listeners and let them know a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, okay. So my name is Catrina Harrington Spencer now. I'm recently married. I work in IT, healthcare IT. I have 3 biological children and 7 bonus babies. 5 grandbabies. I have to name them all to get the number right, so forgive me on that one. Might be 6. And just, really I think my relationships define me more than what I do defines me. So I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a sister, daughter, grandma. That's more what I am.
Employee.
I'm an employee. I am a business owner. Mm-hmm. I am a lot of things. I wear a lot of hats. Mm-hmm. And so this topic is actually really interesting to me because Gina and I were talking just before we started recording, and I said, I'm not sure if I know what my stressors are even. I can't say I do this, and when I do this, I feel stress.
Right.
Because stress is kind of maybe a normal for me. So I need to listen to it in context to define, like, oh, okay, yeah, I do that too. That's stress for me too. Yeah. It's more like, hold up, doesn't everybody go through that? Isn't that just every day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's a big part of what I'm challenged with as a functional medicine provider. When people come in and talk to me and tell me their stories, life is stressful. Mm-hmm. So what does it mean, the impact of stress on my biology? What does that even mean? And what are you talking about? How is it possible that my life is somehow contributing to where my biology is going? But I feel like as women, we are the caretakers of all of the people that we come across in our life, and people who we create, right? Mm-hmm. And people who we decide to share our lives with. Okay. And for us to allow stress to somehow impair our caretaking ability, I just don't think a lot of us kind of go there. Mm-hmm. And so many women who I see just ignore what's happening in their body because they just have to keep going.
I think, too, it's really interesting because in my 20s, I think I was pretty young, about maybe 23-ish or so, I started getting these really serious chest pains. Mm-hmm. Chest pains that would floor me every now and then. And, I have some family history of heart conditions. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is a reality for me. I started going to the doctor. And they did these tests, they did stress tests and asked me questions. And finally, the doctor said, I think this is how you respond to stress. I think you respond to stress physically. And I thought, what's stress? And
Right.
so he said, well, let's unpack that a little, and so we started talking about the fact that I was in my 20s, but I was a single mom. I had recently married and wasn't liking marriage very much. I was a full-time student. There was a lot going on in my life. And the doctor told me at that time, he said, look, you have to find a way to manage your stress because this can actually kill you.
Wow.
And I thought, exactly, wow, because so you're not telling me I have a heart condition, you're not telling me there's necessarily anything physically wrong with me, but you are telling me that if I don't manage this, I can still die because of it. And that was my first kind of introduction to dealing with stress. Like, okay, I have to figure out what stresses me and find a way to handle it.
And I think that when we talk about stress, we often are trying to identify a thing that stresses you, and so we know that a fire in the house would be stressful. Sure. A robbery would be stressful. Right. Somebody stealing your wallet is stressful. So we always want to think about just these events that are stressful. But, waking up, I see so many people who wake up at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, in order to get ready for work, get the kids ready for school, pack the lunches, get to work on time, work. Then they have to go do after-school activities, try and figure out supper, get supper on the table, help with homework, get themselves ready for the next day, do laundry, do the housekeeping, feed the cat, and then go to bed, and then do it all over again. And that's stressful.
It's really interesting because I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, maybe it's maybe a paradigm shift might be necessary. Maybe instead of thinking of it as managing stress, we should think of it as how do we manage our lives? How do we insert moments in our lives to detox mentally, emotionally, physically? How do you insert that time? And realizing that also needs to be a part of your
the checklist.
Process. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And that's where it's, how do we balance that? Because so many people are already juggling so many things. So then to say, okay, well now we have to add another step on your checklist, which is you need to check out for an hour and relax. And I don't know about you, well, I do, but I literally never do one thing at a time.
Oh, no.
My life does not have time for me to do one thing at a time. I'm always doing more than one thing at a time.
Multiple.
I don't have enough time in the day to just do one thing.
And do you feel guilty when you do try to, if I take one thing off my plate, I will be honest, I do kind of feel like, oh, but now, maybe I should have just gone ahead and given her that ride to school, Right. I could have done it, I could have done it while I was on my Teams meeting. I could have just pushed mute and taken the ride. I do then feel guilty when I do take things off my plate.
I do, and I feel like that guilt then is another big, huge form of stress because I put so much responsibility on myself to care for everybody else around me. And I mean, to the point where I literally stress myself out over making sure that the dog and cat are having a happy life because we're so busy in our lives. We're, I'm a business owner. I'm now the sole owner of my business. I'm a mother. I have, children that I have to take care of. I have a husband who's dealing with a lot of issues right now around race relations. And so there's so much that I feel responsible for trying to keep going. And I don't want things to just keep going. I want things I want everybody happy, even the cat and the dog. I mean, I don't have as much time to take the dog out. It's been hot, it's been raining, and my cat, I have a relatively new cat. She's only a year old, and I look at her and I'm like, oh my God, all she does is just spend time in the day. And then when she's, in the house, and when she's all awake and ready to play, we're all going to bed because she's a nocturnal animal. And then I think, and now I don't let her in my bedroom because she purrs on me and wakes me up at night, so I can't let her sleep with me. And so then the time when she actually wants to be interacting, I'm asleep and she's alone, and I feel bad for the cat.
Yeah.
Like, seriously. I worry about the cat.
You brought the cat into the house. She's your responsibility now.
Exactly.
No, I completely get it.
She's smart. I feel like I need to be training her. She's so ready to learn.
We had to get rid of a dog for the same reason. I mean, he was adorable and he was smart and he was all of these things, but he was also one other thing to be done. And I couldn't do it all. And then I felt bad.
Yep. So.
Yeah.
But I wonder about that. Because again, I wouldn't necessarily think about those things as being stressors. It's just what I think of as being my responsibility as the caretaker of the mental, emotional well-being of everything living in my realm.
In your circumference. It's all you.
But is that a reality? Am I really responsible for the emotional happiness of my cat? Yes.
Yeah.
I am.
I think we are, as long as we take that responsibility.
Yeah.
And when we take it, other people are free to bow out.
I know.
And then you get annoyed by that.
Yes. So that's the next thing we have to talk about, is how us taking on so much responsibility maybe unloads things for other people in our lives. So, do you think that us carrying so much responsibility kind of, in a way, negatively affects those around us by not putting responsibility on them? Do you think that's a negative for them, a negative for us, or what do you think about that?
To be completely honest, this is something that I'm recently trying to navigate and get around, because the older I get, the more, I don't know why, but I thought I'm getting older, my kids are getting older, everybody's going to need me less. I don't know why I thought that. And it hit me like a brick wall when I realized that it's not the truth at all. And I've kind of honestly been going through a little emotional mental health turbulence around it, because just feeling like, okay, I can't just hold this, I can't do this, I can't do everything forever, so I've been trying to think about that and trying to, number one, identify ways that I don't ask for help, because doing everything is what I do. Yeah. So I don't even know, what am I supposed to ask for help for? Because I always do 100 things at a time. So which of these things am I now claiming I can't do and I need help to do? I don't know how to explain it, but I don't even know how to begin to just say, hey, you clean the kitchen, the chicken that we're going to have for dinner, you clean it tonight. That one thing, because in my mind I'm like, I'm already in here, I can clean it, I can just do it, So that's part of it. But then, aside from just not knowing how to ask for help, I realize I'm feeling resentment toward people who are not just helping because they see that I'm doing 100 things. I don't want to have to ask for the help. I want them to just
recognize that you need it and just jump in and do it, because that's what you would do for them.
Right.
Yep.
But then I have to say, however, if my method has been doing everything for all this time and I'm having difficulty asking for help, that must mean that their method has been not doing anything all of this time. So why would they ask to help?
Right.
Right? So I think that, So yeah, I don't know if it's taking anything from someone who's never done anything to keep asking them not, to not require that they do anything, because I think that's what they do. I think it's probably more of a disruption either way, to say, for me to ask for the help and then for them to now say in so many ways, like, oh, so you need me now, type of situation. I don't know. But I've been having some very kind of deep conversations with my husband around that, where I literally just asked him the other day, well, you tell me what it is that you think a man is supposed to do in the house, or not just in the house, but in a relationship, in a family. What are the bags that you are supposed to carry here, And it was an interesting conversation because he didn't have very much to say. Like, it was kind of like I
never thought about it that way.
Yeah, he was like, okay, well, And honestly, I would be very interested in having that bigger, broader conversation with many men. Like, just survey. I just, list what is a man supposed to do? And I think that because, we do have that. Usually, I think a man would say it's my job to provide, financially or whatever. But we are working too.
Right.
The flip side of that is, if I'm honest about myself, I'm not going to not work.
Right.
I'm not going to not work. There are things that I want, that I feel like I need to work for, that I'm happy to see the fruit of my labor. So it's not as though I would say, this is stress I don't want. You take it. I'm just going to hang out. And so I'm going to work. I don't want to speak for all men. I think I am the best to love and nurture my children. I'm not giving him that. Right? I know for a fact that I'm more likely to get up, for example, and drive my son literally across the street to football practice because it's 5:45 in the morning and it's kind of dark outside. Right. And I know my husband would be like, it's across the street. He'll be okay. Right? So I'm not going to not do that.
Right.
So what does it look like, Gina? Like, I don't know what. Yeah. Yes, I think I take on a lot. Yes, I realize that those things are stress. By the way, so I said 20 years ago, my doctor said chest pains, heart attack, reduce your stress. And I was able to manage that one. But I went to the doctor the other day and she said, well, these arthritic pains that you're having can be worsened by stress.
Yeah.
What?
Everything is worse by stress. Stress causes chronic inflammation, and chronic inflammation exacerbates everything in the body.
What?
Yes.
I'm like, okay, so look. So you mean to tell me right now my knee is hurting? Because
you're stressed out.
Right, because I need to go to Hawaii, by the way.
That's right.
So yeah, Gina, how do we do that? And one more thing. And so how do I manage my stress? When I decide that I'm going to try to manage my stress?
How do you do it?
Sometimes that's eating ice cream, cookies, baking. Sometimes it's painting, going to the gym. I like to work out. But guess what? Those things are stressful too.
Yeah.
You know why?
Why?
Because if I want to paint, I have to have all of my stuff together. I have to have the space and the quiet and the calm. I have to create that.
Yeah.
So that usually means I'm going to have to tap everybody who's normally pulling at my hem to get them to give me 5 minutes or an hour.
Right.
Lord, 2 hours.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Same with the gym, and the gym, there's also a membership fee, so I have to pay for that, and that's a whole thing, and it's like, well, am I going to pay for this, or am I going to do that, So
even to try and relieve your stress, it's stressful to carve out the money, the time, the space to engage in your stress relieving activities.
And even just to put something down.
Yes.
Instead of preparing dinner at this moment,
Right.
I'm going to go paint.
Right. Right. So what I wonder, though, is by carrying all of that responsibility for the orchestration of everybody's welfare and happiness in your life, I guess my one question to you would be, did anybody do that for you growing up?
Well, I was in a single parent household. It was just my mother and 3 kids. I'm the baby. So I will say, I think the older her children got, my mom was like, okay, I got to do less of this, So she did loosen up the reins a little. But yeah, she carried everything. And a little backstory to that, I remember growing up, I always knew I would have children. I never even imagined having a husband, right? I didn't. My mom made what she was doing look correct, doable. She said it wasn't, oh no, you should have a husband, and but she made it look easy. I never thought that I would have difficulty raising children or being a single parent or taking care of household, any of that, because I had a great example of what that looked like.
And not only that, your mother is incredibly accomplished. I mean, she's got a doctorate.
Yep, my mother's a DNP. She, created, ran, operated her own hospice. She's, my mom's a superstar.
She really is.
So I never doubted that I would be one too. I knew I could do that. Flip side of that, in a conversation for another time, I never thought I would be a good wife, and therefore there have been some bumps in the road because that was an example I didn't have. But as far as stress is concerned, my mother lived in stress. She lived in chaos. She lived in single parent, managing bills. I have to go back to school now, so I'm going to go back to school full time while I have children in school, and I'm going to become a nurse, and I'm going to, do all of these things. I imagine my mom's life was very stressful, but kind of back to the beginning, that was normal, and that's what I saw as normal. So what stress?
Right.
And as I think about it, I can't imagine, I can't recall any conversation with my mom ever where she used the word stress. I mean, she talked about, in retrospect,
right,
she was talking about what her stresses were. But I don't even know if my mom even had that type of emotional intelligence or was tapped into being able to identify the things that was stressing her.
Right.
Even.
Right.
Because she had to make it happen. She had to raise successful kids. She had to keep us out of the street. She had to keep us fed. And that was just what was going to happen.
Right. And that's kind of why I want to have this conversation today, is because life is stressful. We can't not have stress in our life. Right. And as a matter of fact, if you don't have any kind of stress in your life, you probably also don't have any sense of satisfaction either, because, things can't feel good if they haven't felt hard first. There is the yin and yang. There really is no happiness without sadness, because if your mood is just always the same, then there's no joy. Right? So you get joy from struggle. That's where you find your joy. But so we know life is just a challenge, and we want life to be a challenge, but yet somehow we have to also have that recognition that we have to have this balance where we're able to disconnect from our responsibilities, our stressors, our relationships, and then just sit and reflect and have some awake moments of peace. And that's where I think it's really challenging for people to recognize, because they think, I sleep. I go to bed, so that's my time to rest, is I sleep, right? Yeah. And I don't want to downplay the importance of sleep, because obviously our brain, our body does a lot of work while we're sleeping. That's when we do housekeeping and resetting of things and cleaning out the gut and resetting hormones, resetting endorphins. I mean, you know, we do a lot of vacuuming, cleaning up the garbage in the brain. So yes, sleep is very important. But being awake and calm, like intentionally calm while you're awake, setting aside that space to be still, that is more powerful than any medication that anybody can give you for your arthritis, for your pain, for your gut health, for your anxiety, for your mood. There literally is no medicine that is as powerful as that awake, quiet time.
Yeah, like the meditation, the being intentional about getting yourself together.
So how do you find that awake, quiet stillness?
I find it in two ways. In silence. A deep breath is kind of my quick reset. In that moment, just kind of I do that before I speak. If I'm in a, tumultuous conversation, I'll take a deep breath and just give myself that moment. It's so cleansing. It's just a moment. So I can't even imagine if I gave myself an hour to meditate or something. But the other thing that I do that's probably the most effective thing that I do is prayer. So I find kind of my stress relief in a meditation of prayer, a moment where when I'm my most angry or most discombobulated, or, just things aren't what I need them to be, I say a prayer. And it's pretty much the same prayer, some variation of it, but the prayer is always thank you. It's always thank you. I don't pray, like get rid of these, demons. But I don't do that. My prayer is that deep breath in, followed by thank you for all of the blessings that you've given me. It's always that first thing. And if I'm, upset with my husband, I'll say, thank you for giving me a husband who loves me, who cares for me, who wants to protect me. Thank you for beautiful, healthy children. Thank you for a roof over my head. Thank you for food to eat. Thank you for a career, especially, during COVID, when it was the height of COVID, and people they were losing their homes and they were losing their jobs. And, it's like that reminder of all of the things that are going right. And I give myself that. And what I've learned is in the past, I would be able to hold on to anger. Gosh, which is also a stressor.
Yeah.
But I would be able to hold on to anger. And I learned after just incorporating that one thing, when I'm most upset or whatever, just say thank you for everything that is good. It's amazing how quickly that allows me to reset today.
Yeah.
I can, within, I would say sometimes even 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm just back to, okay, so let's handle this.
And that's a form of stress management for sure. And I think, that's a beautiful story, and it's a great example of how we can make choices in our life to, I would consider that a restorative practice. So I'm always talking to people about engaging in restorative practices. But really, what does that mean? Well, it just means kind of restoring or resetting your nervous system, quite honestly. Okay. And so what you've done is learned a very simple technique that works for you to take that sudden rush buildup of emotions and learn a way to diffuse it and let it go so that you can reset, restore, and then approach things from a more mindful, focused place. So a lot of what in the functional medicine world, a lot of what we talk about is sympathetic versus parasympathetic response. So we have two different nervous systems. One is autonomic or automatic, and one kind of gets triggered. It's more sympathetic. So it's our adaptive nervous system. And what happens is a lot of people, because of chronic stress, they get stuck in a certain sort of sympathetic response, and then their body never kind of resets back to being just automatic. Right? And so what you're talking about is finding a way to let that stress go, reset your nervous system, calm things down, get back to your normal brain, and respond naturally, you know? So, and that's just a moment. That's not a half-hour yoga breathing practice.
Right.
It's like a moment. But you found it to be effective.
Right. Oh, yeah, I did that.
You did that. With your amazingly intelligent self.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried yoga too, though. And that is, the thing that I love about yoga is it does still give you that quiet, which, I was talking a moment ago about the power of silence as well. So I've learned that to be very maybe restorative too. I'll let you tell me in a second. Because I think there's so much noise in the world today. There is, the literal noise because we're in cities and there's traffic and construction and, but then there's also the noise of politics and the news and life. Then you have your personal noises, the things you tell yourself, and if you can get that stuff to stop, you find that moment, or moments of quiet. The thing I like about yoga is it's intentionally quiet, calming. Not that there's no noise, but it changes the noise, right? You have this slow, soft, melodic, it's get you in touch with your breathing, yourself, your body. And yoga then allows you to get the quiet, but also incorporate that physical relief, I guess is what I'm thinking. When I do the prayer, I get that mental kind of spiritual relief where it's like, okay, let's do something different. But with the yoga, I can do the breathe and do the stretch and, kind of like let it come in and then let it go out. Yeah. And yoga has been powerful for me as well. That's something that I've been recently doing. So it's new for me, but I think that that is a good option as well. I still like sleep too, though. Sleep is always a good, I can't deal anymore, I'm going to bed.
Yes. So talking about noise, we were just in Panama, and the last hotel that we stayed at was on the beach, near a beach. And then behind the hotel, they had this mangrove preserve. And I went walking out onto the suspension bridge over the mangrove roots and stood there and listened. And I could hear the ocean, which was, not very far away, but maybe like a half a mile from where I was standing. And you could still hear the waves. And I realized that anywhere I am in the Atlanta area, whether I'm in a park or taking a walk or in my house, if I'm quiet, I always hear traffic. Always. There's never not the sound of traffic in the background, cars, no matter what time of day or night. And no matter if you can see the cars or not, you can always hear the traffic.
Yeah.
And, you know, thinking about that, it's like we are just in such a noisy world. And I am just as guilty, or can be just as guilty as other people with when I have some quiet time, I'll grab my phone and I'll start looking on my phone. I'm always checking my emails or whatever, doing something on your phone. And because we're always on, and then here living in a city, we have this constant noise outside us, this constant noise inside us, and then this constant drive for stimulation. So even when I have a few minutes where I can be quiet, then I'm seeking stimulation, you know, and I have to be disciplined to disconnect from everything. But here I find it hard to disconnect from everything because there really is no quiet.
Yeah, so we don't have quiet, but I think it's important for us to make the quiet. And so that might be, you know, it's funny, I have a quiet time app on my phone.
Yeah.
I think most phones have them. I was just playing around with mine and found it. And I thought, oh, okay. Every night at 10:30, I need my phone to go on quiet time until, whatever time in the morning. It's been a challenge, but what my phone does is it will go gray and the sound will go away and it'll say bedtime or quiet time or whatever it says, right? I also put timers like that on the apps on my phone. So I'm like, I am not going to play Gardenscapes for 5 hours. So I gave myself like a 1 hour. And if I play it for that long, it'll say, you know, it'll stop it. It'll tell me it's past the time. So it's unfortunate, but yes, I do have to let my device tell me to sit down because I won't do it. I've learned by myself. But then there's also, maybe we can change perspective a little. Maybe the cars going back and forth are the ocean waves. Maybe
exactly.
Maybe that's your white noise, you know? Maybe we just kind of tune and say, well, it kind of, you know, like it's not, but, you know, how do we get that quiet? I don't think I've answered that yet.
No, and I feel like that to me is one of the ways that we can learn how to let go of that constant need to be responsible for everybody else in the home or in our lives, you know, is setting aside that time to allow that quiet to come in. And I wonder if we're able to set aside some time for quiet, and which to me is self-care. Would that make us better able to handle all the responsibility of everybody else, or because I mean I would say yes obviously to that, but also learning how to transition some of that constant burden of responsibility with the guilt laden on top of that. Can we, if we set aside better boundaries and quiet for ourselves, saying, you know, this is what I need for myself now. Those are the things that need to be done. So, you know, can we hand over some of that responsibility to other people in a way that lifts them up to engage them in self-care? Or can we couch it in caring for mom? Like, I care for you all this time. Now I need to care for me, and I need you to participate in the caring for me. Like, I wonder what would motivate people to be more participatory in taking on responsibilities. You know, would it be to care for themselves, which you've always done, or would it be to care for you? I don't know what I think. You know what I'm saying?
I do, and it's crazy because you've just made me think of something. Like, why do we feel the need to do all of these things? I thought that because I have that argument in my household when I do, get in a frenzy and I'm like, do something. Why am I yada, 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 right? And my family pretty much sits and looks at me like, I don't know why you're doing that. I don't know why you chose to clean out the cabinet right now and wipe everything down, all the spices, you weirdo. And so what I just thought as you were saying that was, what am I feeding?
Right.
What am I feeding inside of me that really doesn't have anything at all to do with my family? When I'm taking on all of this, so much so that when I do have downtime, I'm filling it with something else.
Right.
Maybe that's something else to consider. But I think that for myself, I need to learn how to just say, do this. I can ask or I can tell, and I believe that anybody in my household would do it for the most part. I will admit it's a stressor for me even to ask. Like I said before, because if I ask, I don't want to have to ask again.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's going to be, hey, would you do this? And I want them to literally get up in that moment and do it.
And do it. I know.
And if they don't, I'm just going to do it myself.
Right.
It's like, I'll fix the plumbing myself. I'm a plumber. Where's the thing, the wrench thing? Or, like, me, I'll YouTube it. I'll get it done. But I think that might be something else that we need to consider, though, when we're talking about our stressors and managing our stress, is maybe the best way to manage it is to figure out what makes us even feel like we need to do it all anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think it's important because as women, what motivates or drives us to have to care for everything. Maybe not all women are the same, but I do feel this very strong sort of self-imposed need to ensure the happiness of everybody around me at all times, and that if there's something that I can be doing to improve the lives of those around me, then I feel like I have to do that. But I also do see that there are ways in which I've changed and adapted away from what I want, like things being a certain way at home, cleanliness-wise, or things being organized a certain way, where after years of just having kids and having a husband who's very helpful. I mean, I'm very lucky. My husband is very helpful around the house, but he does those things his way, not my way. And over time, I've had to just let go of my expectations and how I would prefer things to be. And I have to just accept them as they are. And I don't know if that, to a certain extent, demotivates me sometimes because things aren't necessarily the way that I would prefer them to be. It almost makes me feel less motivated than to do other things. I don't know, in the house. I don't know if I'm explaining that well. But I think as women, I do think it's really important to try and figure out what drives us to be externally focused, and then take some of that concern for everybody else and add ourselves to that list.
To that list of people or things that we're concerned about.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's what we've established today, is that that's something that we have to prioritize. And maybe sometimes we do it in a way that we don't realize because, like you've learned how to do this prayer and to reset yourself, and you didn't really think about that as being a restorative practice. No, it was more to save the lives of everyone around me. It's like they deserve to live.
Yeah. But then I think, and I don't want to. I think it would be a mistake to not say, but then you also have your friendships, and you feed into those, but they also are stress relief too. That also gives balance, you know. And I call you and talk your ear off for an hour and a half, and then I say, oh yeah, so how was your day?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you still breathing? Hello? You know. But that is something too, finding a safe place to unpack, you know, or to relieve stress. So I think that friendships are also, you know, very important, and things that can be a part of that routine, you know, that just, so that's why girl time is important.
Yes.
You know.
Girl time. Very important.
Girl time.
Friend time.
Yes, friend time.
I know. It really is important to have that person or those couple people who, when something's really gotten you upset, to just call and say, do you know what just happened? Do you know what
Girl, I'm putting them all out.
Yeah.
So you just come pick them all up. The husband too, the dog too. I'm done with all of them. Come get them. And then your girlfriend entertains that for a while and says, well, yeah, I mean, they could sleep on the floor, and the dogs might fight, but it's okay. And then before you know it, everybody's laughing, and you're like, so let's go get something to eat.
That's right.
There you go. That works too. Because as we just discussed, nobody is going to understand that better than another woman, because she's doing the same craziness in her life. Yeah.
Exactly. So, well, I think that probably about wraps up our conversation. I think we've been talking for probably close to half an hour. So I don't know if we solved any of the world's problems today, but thank you for tuning in. And I hope that this inspires women to reflect on their own self-care time, and to feel validated that all of us, you know,
we're all doing it.
We're all doing it. We're all balancing multiple cups in the air, balls in the air.
Hats. Everything.
Yep. And we're all super accomplished in our own ways if we have gotten to the point where we are now, and we have managed to not kill our children or our dogs or our husbands. If we're still working, we're doing great. We're being very successful.
And just in case you're like almost about, like the poison is almost about to go in the cup, put it down, girlfriend, put it down.
Say a prayer.
It's okay. Just say a prayer.
Take a deep breath.
Woosah moment. Eat a cookie. Whatever.
Right.
It's okay.
A keto, gluten-free, coconut, whatever. No,
I'm full of sugar. I'm full of sugar. All butter. Butter, sugar. One cookie won't hurt is when you finish the bag.
That's right. So, thank you for joining our conversation today, and have a blessed rest of your day.